Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the NBC Markets Morning Call. The market broadened last night as oil retreated and tech bled. We had a little bit of selling in the likes of Google, particularly. They've got some pretty key people leaving. One of the Nobel laureates from the AlphaFold DeepMind project, John Jumper, has left for Anthropic, and another fellow's left. Shazeer's left for OpenAI just days earlier. Never a good sign when you've got long-term key people like that who have been involved in massive projects leaving, and probably maybe reflects, well, potentially, I guess that's what, with being down 5%, it probably reflects on where they think the project's going. I suppose we had Broadcom drift off about 4 or 5% overnight, and I say drift off at 4 or 5% because 5% is like a nothing day these days for these chip stocks. Intel and Micron rallied a little bit. Micron rallied 7% because they signed a strategic agreement with Anthropic on AI infrastructure. That's obviously announcing everyone's tried that, from Zero to CrowdStrike to Palo Alto. If you're a software company or you're or any company, you want to get it out there on LinkedIn that you've signed a deal with Anthropic. So Super Micro Computer was up 16% as well after getting absolutely hosed a few days ago. Getty Images actually jumped around about 90% overnight as they actually signed a deal with OpenAI. So there's no real details around the deal, but I would assume it will be for some form of licensing for training. So we had all this AI, capex anxiety. We lost around about $250 billion last night between Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft on that capex AI sort of theme, and we're obviously a little bit watchful as we're pretty frothy at these levels overall. And I do believe Netflix had a little bit of a pullback as well, because there's talk around Meta actually maybe entering via Instagram, that sort of to host some movies on the Instagram platform or something along those lines. So one in the middle there, Lam Research, one of our recommendations here at MPC, which we're actually trimming into at the moment. It was up 5% last night just because it's a good stock. The chip stock index rallied the SOX rallied 1% to a new high. But look, from a price action standpoint, it feels like we're running out a little bit of steam. It's a little bit erratic. It's a little bit back and forth. Obviously, there's positive news because there's progress on Iran, and that is in inverted commas for those of you just listening. But we're starting to have a look at, despite all that, and despite the fact that oil was up a couple of percent, that energy sector still remained relatively buoyant. I think all the bad news is largely priced in there, and I kind of like the look of the that Chevron, Conoco, Exxon Mobil part of the heat map here at the moment, because they've slipped back quite a bit. So the ASX was largely unchanged yesterday. WiseTech not really helping, particularly in that tech sector. Of course, Morningstar, or as I like to call them, Captain Hindsight, has come out with it could bring a 15 to 20% drop. They might want to, at Morningstar, they might want to give the same focus around comments like that to their website, because they've still got their price target of $138 for fair value on WiseTech. So, well done, guys. You're only about, a year and a half behind the eight ball there, but basically saying that we can't survive without him. And look, they're half right. We did drop 15% yesterday. The other half is just pure fantasy and disappointing from what's supposed to be one of the market leading research companies, which is just going to be a headline now. But they've got the proper CEO in there, Zubin Apo. He's a 15-year insider. He helped build this from the ground up. He's he's almost like a founding CEO. And if anything, I'm sort of we're of the opinion here at NBC that the stock could rally if Richard White actually was to resign. So because it would reduce a lot of this governance tension, etc. Judging by what happened last time, I don't expect that to happen, we'll just have to see this play out. And the long-suffering he's only hurting himself, so long-suffering shareholders, might call for a mutiny, but unfortunately, he's still got the voting power to keep himself there. So it's not particularly good, but could be long term, could be a decent buying opportunity, I would have thought, because the company is still in good nick, and we still have an insider running the company as well. So of all that intellectual property, I mean, White's really only there for for deal making these days, not there so much on day to day. SpaceX slipped through the to a record low, if we're gonna go down the line of falsely inflammatory headlines, like the AFR and Morningstar. They've slipped down to around about the 155 mark. And look, it was a pretty good few days. The first day of trading closes 160. I'm assuming we're going to be beelining it now for the 135. The 135 IPO price. It's not that far. It was down 16% last night. There's not a lot of money, free float there at the moment. I believe only about 4%. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. And I just feel for the guy who paid $222, or guy or girl, because that it could be quite a while till you get that money back, I wouldn't imagine. But hopefully they're a believer and they're happy to ride it out in the dollar cost average. So we like this lower though, like as in $100 or below lower, and we'll sort of start to look at it there. We for those of you who would like to watch we did a weekly podcast here at NBC Markets called Bulls versus Bears. Myself, Jonathan Takadina, Kai Chen, and Finn Jadel, where we've actually talked about the mega IPOs over the last couple of weeks. Gold last night was slightly higher, but down on the week, and sort of stabilized in silver and platinum. Copper just still kind of grinding away. I'm super impressed by copper at the moment. It's just been, doesn't seem to take the hits anywhere near as hard as the other metals, and then it seems to grind higher with the, to the upside far more. Lithium, uranium were down a little bit, and we had Bitcoin, a rare bounce for recent times, I've got to say. US dollar is at pretty decent levels at the moment, particularly against the yen, and it's been a few people obviously monitoring the Japanese interest rates going higher, etc. And I think there was a story across a couple of the wires this morning. It's like, where's all the yen carry trade, selling in the US dollar? Well, it certainly hasn't materialized. I think it's at multi-month highs against the yen. So today not much to talk about. We got FedEx before the open, some manufacturing stuff in the US. Tomorrow will be the big dog in Australia. Wednesday CPI, and that will largely dictate quite a bit. Well, coupled with employment, dictate, I would say, where monetary policy, where the pundits think monetary policy is going. It's probably the most important thing. And then we've got Micron on Thursday morning, which will be watched like a hawk given this memory chip shortage and the recent rallies, and Micron and SK Hynix being possibly two of the most overbought stocks on an RSI standpoint, apparently in history. So bearing in mind, disclaimer there, I found that it was on social media, but Vail to Alan Greenspan. He was Fed chair for 18 years. He survived across 5 terms. He passed away this morning at 100 years old. So, pretty good wicket. And look, he really managed the economy through, or the central bank through some pretty enormous change from, up until about 2005, 2006, I believe. famous for the irrational exuberance comment when when he was one of the first ever Fed members, Fed chairs, to basically say the equity market was too expensive, which was the tech bubble. So he was right. He took over from Volcker, which was possibly one of the most famous Fed chairs of all time, and enormous shoes to fill, considering everyone, he was sort of custodian of making sure that inflation did not pick up its head again out of that late 80s debacle where they had stagflation, so did an incredible job. Was a pretty impressive man, or a very impressive man, and condolences to his family, I suppose. Not that they listen to the morning call, but yeah. So if you want to have a look at our podcast, just scan the code there. You can get it on all of your favorite platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I believe it's on iHeartRadio as well. Have a look at those mega IPOs and go through a few of the numbers before they list in the next few months. I think that largely wraps it up for the day. And so we'll speak again tomorrow.